Your grocery bill keeps climbing, doesn't it? But the scary part isn't just inflation. Imagine walking into Walmart, picking up a sealed package of ham labeled at $24.55 for 4.93 pounds. You trust it and scan the barcode. But when you place it on an independent scale, the actual weight is only 1.83 pounds. You were just overcharged by $15.44 in plain sight for a single item. That difference isn't a rounding error. It's a shock that completely changes the way we look at what's happening on the shelves of America's largest retailer. A system that seemed flawless was just caught by something millions of Americans overlook every single day. Over the past few years, grocery shopping in America has turned into a financial puzzle. Consumers are cutting back on spending, comparing every price, and checking their receipts carefully before leaving the checkout. But in the middle of everything that's being questioned more and more, there's still one thing almost nobody stops to question: the numbers printed on the labels. When you pick up a tray of ground beef or a prepackaged ham at Walmart, you automatically trust that the weight printed on the package is the weight you're actually holding in your hands. That trust is what has kept the retail industry running for decades. Until one day, an ordinary customer decided to check for himself. He wasn't a government inspector. He wasn't an investigative reporter. He wasn't carrying any specialized equipment. He was just a TikTok creator named Jimmy Rigg. While standing in front of the meat case at a Walmart store in Commerce, Georgia, Jimmy suddenly paused. The Kentucky Legend ham in his hands felt unusually light. Instead of putting it into his shopping cart, he took the package over to the digital scale in the produce section. When the package was placed on the scale, the screen showed a result completely different from what the label said. The difference wasn't just a few ounces caused by moisture or normal measurement error. It was big enough that Jimmy decided not to stop after just one test. But to understand why this discovery quickly turned into a much bigger investigation, we need to look back at what had already happened with Walmart. Between 2018 and 2024, Walmart paid $45 million to settle a class action lawsuit involving allegations of overcharging for prepackaged meat, poultry, seafood, and weighted produce. Then, in August 2025, the company agreed to settle another case in California for $5.64 million after prosecutors found that multiple food products had actual weights lower than what was listed on their labels. These cases do not prove that every product at Walmart has a problem, but they do raise a very important question. If Jimmy's discovery was just an isolated incident, why have similar controversies over product weights and pricing surfaced again and again throughout the history of this retail chain? To build a case that can't be dismissed, the first thing an investigator has to do is isolate and eliminate the role of chance. In both science and the legal system, something that happens once can be called an accident. Twice can be called a coincidence. But if it keeps happening, follows a pattern, and shows up in different locations, it officially becomes a pattern. After his first discovery, Jimmy Rigg didn't stop. He began a real-world investigation, visiting different Walmart stores on different days and checking different batches of prepackaged meat. He turned his phone camera and the produce scale into an independent auditing tool. The results from those follow-up visits pushed this far beyond the boundaries of an ordinary technical mistake. Take a look at the real-world data he documented publicly, clearly, and without any edits. The results from the follow-up tests showed that this went far beyond a routine error. For example, one package of ham was labeled at 4.93 pounds, but when it was placed on the scale, it weighed only 1.83 pounds. A difference of 3.10 pounds. Another package was labeled at 5.41 pounds, while its actual weight was only 2.32 pounds, again coming up short by 3.09 pounds. What stands out is that these ham packages were different sizes, ranging from about 4.8 to 5.6 pounds according to their labels. Yet the difference stayed almost exactly the same, consistently falling between 3.09 and 3.10 pounds. That's the detail that makes this investigation so compelling. If this were simply natural moisture loss, a packaging error, or an employee mistake, the differences should vary randomly. One package might be off by a few ounces, another by half a pound, while another might be almost perfectly accurate. But here, nearly the exact same shortfall kept appearing across different products. That's the sign of a systematic error, not a random mistake. Machines don't create patterns on their own. They simply repeat whatever they've been programmed to do, or whatever technical problems the system has failed to detect. To take the investigation even further and show that this wasn't limited to a single brand of ham, Jimmy Rigg expanded his testing to other meat products. He picked up a package of Angus beef prime rib. The label clearly listed the weight as 4.64 pounds, but when he placed it on the scale, the actual weight came out to 4.14 pounds. That was a difference of 0.50 pounds, half a pound. Although the shortfall on the prime rib package, 0.5 pounds, didn't match the 3.1 pound difference found on the ham packages, that's exactly what made it important. It showed that the discrepancy wasn't limited to one product line or one supplier. It was showing up in different meat sections, with different amounts of variance. On one side, there was what appeared to be a fixed system error with a large margin. On the other, there was a weight shortage on a high-end product with a high price per pound. Taken together, all of this real-world evidence establishes one unavoidable fact. A random error cannot produce 5 nearly identical discrepancies across products of different sizes in multiple stores. The system was operating with a major flaw that kept repeating itself. And if the problem wasn't random, then what exactly was creating this pattern from deep inside the system? To find the answer behind this unusual pattern of discrepancies, we have to peel back the surface of the grocery shelves and look at how the modern retail supply chain actually works. Today, the American retail industry is built on 2 core foundations: automation and labor reduction. The days when every supermarket had its own butcher department, where employees personally weighed, cut, and labeled every product in front of customers, are long gone. That process was simply too slow and too expensive. Today, most meat products at Walmart are managed under a pre-packaged and pre-priced system. That means the products are weighed by automated systems at the supplier's processing facility, where the labels are printed with the weight, unit price, and total price before the products ever leave the factory. They are then packed into cases, shipped through distribution centers, and delivered to individual Walmart stores. Once the products arrive, the store employee's job is almost entirely limited to opening the boxes and stocking the shelves. They don't weigh the products again. The checkout system doesn't weigh them again either. When the barcode is scanned at the register, the amount the customer pays is the number that was already determined back at the processing facility, hundreds of miles away. And that's where the biggest control gap appears. Walmart places almost complete trust in the accuracy of its suppliers. Meanwhile, these automated production lines operate at extremely high speeds. All it takes is a software error during the weighing process, an incorrect tare weight setting, or a problem in the label printing algorithm, and thousands of products can continue moving through the system without a single additional weight check before reaching consumers. At this point, many people will ask a perfectly reasonable question. What if the problem was actually the scale Jimmy Rigg used for comparison? Maybe the store's own scale was inaccurate, making every package appear lighter than it really was. Jimmy considered that possibility too. Before weighing the ham packages, He placed a certified 2-pound calibration weight on Walmart's produce scale. The display read 2.02 pounds. That result showed the store's scale had only a very small margin of error, and it was off in the direction of reading heavier than the actual weight. In other words, if the scale had any effect at all, it should have made the meat packages appear heavier, not turned a product labeled at nearly 5 pounds into one weighing less than 2 pounds. At the very least, the store's scale was almost completely eliminated as a suspect. However, from a legal standpoint, this test still isn't the final piece of evidence. In the United States, official inspections of prepackaged goods must follow the standards outlined in NIST Handbook 133. That process requires certified equipment, standardized deductions for packaging weight, and an evaluation based on the maximum allowable variation, or MAV, for each category of product. That means a social media video cannot replace the findings of regulatory agencies or automatically establish legal responsibility. But that was never the greatest value of this test. Its real value was showing something that's very difficult to ignore. If an ordinary measurement can reveal a discrepancy of more than 3 pounds on a product that actually weighs less than 2 pounds, then the system has developed a gap far too large to be dismissed as normal measurement error. And once the scale was almost completely cleared of suspicion, the focus of the investigation changed. The question was no longer which device measured the weight incorrectly. It became which system allowed that error to pass through the entire supply chain, from the processing facility all the way to the checkout counter, without being detected. When we talk about a package being short by 3.1 pounds or even half a pound, those numbers can sound dry on paper. But in the consumer's world, every measurement is translated into one language only: cash. This is where we use data storytelling to turn mathematical calculations into a powerful emotional impact, allowing viewers to truly feel the pain in their own wallets. Let's walk through the math using the publicly listed prices shown on the products in the video. For the Angus beef prime rib, the listed price was $14.87 per pound. The label showed a weight of 4.64 pounds, giving the package a listed price of $68.99. But the actual weight was only 4.14 pounds, meaning the customer actually received just $61.56 worth of meat. The buyer of that package lost $7.43 the moment they walked through the checkout. For the Kentucky Legend ham, the listed price was $4.98 per pound. The label showed 4.93 pounds, pricing the package at $24.55. But with an actual weight of only 1.83 pounds, the true value of that ham was just $9.11. The amount overcharged came to $15.44 on a single product. You were paying for nearly 5 pounds of meat, but actually taking home less than 2 pounds. You were paying 2.7 times the actual value of the food. Now let's take the math one step further to see just how large the problem could become. If you're a father or mother shopping for a family gathering, and you put 6 ham packages like that into your cart, you'd lose more than $90. If you bought 8 packages, that number would climb past $120. That's enough money to cover an entire week's worth of groceries for a small family. But now, look at the bigger picture. Walmart is the largest retailer in America, with more than 4,600 stores across the country, serving millions of customers every day. The company's revenue is measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If a single shipment containing thousands of mislabeled meat packages like these were distributed and sold nationwide, without anyone catching the problem, the amount of phantom money paid by American consumers could reach hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. Jimmy Rigg's video put forward a remarkably sharp hypothesis about how the money might be flowing behind the scenes. While questioning employees and the store manager, he pointed out that Walmart purchases products from suppliers in bulk. The company weighs the total weight of an entire case, or even an entire pallet, at major distribution centers and pays the supplier based on that actual weight. So if a case contained 6 underweight ham packages, Walmart may have paid the supplier only for the actual combined weight, which would have been much lighter. However, once those same packages were separated and placed on store shelves, they were sold to consumers based on the inflated numbers printed on each individual label. If that hypothesis is correct, it would mean the supplier never received that extra money. The enormous difference created by those inaccurate labels would instead become an unsupported source of net profit flowing directly to the retailer. To preserve the highest standard of objectivity expected in an investigative documentary, we cannot present that hypothesis as an established fact. Even the store manager in the video had no knowledge of the details of corporate-level commercial contracts. We do not have sufficient audit evidence to claim that Walmart intentionally created a scheme to take money from customers in this way. But what deserves serious attention, and what must be asked as a major question, is this. If customers are always required to pay based on the numbers printed on the product label, then why doesn't a retail system worth hundreds of billions of dollars have any automatic control mechanism capable of detecting a discrepancy this severe before the transaction is completed and the money is taken from the consumer's account? That question takes us to the next stage of the investigation, confronting the people on the inside. After weighing one package of meat after another and documenting every result, Jimmy Rigg didn't upload the video right away. He decided to do something even more important. He took those same meat packages back to Walmart's customer service desk. At that point, the investigation was no longer about the numbers on a scale. It became about a different question. What happens when the system is confronted with evidence brought in by its own customers? The store manager was called over. Jimmy placed the ham package on a second scale right in front of him. The label showed more than 5 pounds, but the scale still displayed only about 2.3 pounds. This time, the result wasn't coming from the produce department scale. It was coming from the store's own equipment. What stood out wasn't panic. It was helplessness. According to Jimmy's account, the store manager admitted he was unaware of the $45 million settlement Walmart had previously faced over allegations of incorrect pricing on prepackaged food products in earlier years. He also said the store had no routine process for reweighing products that arrived from suppliers already packaged and labeled. That points to a reality worth thinking about. A product with an incorrect label could be placed on the shelf, sold to a customer, and leave the store without going through a single verification step at the store level. After confirming the discrepancy, the manager removed the remaining ham packages from the sales floor, voided them in the system, and said the incident would be reported to Walmart's corporate office. That was the response to what was happening inside the store. But outside the store, the story was only beginning. As Jimmy Rigg's videos spread to millions of viewers, Kentucky Legend was forced to issue an official response. The company confirmed that a labeling error had affected a batch of honey brown sugar ham products sold at the Walmart store in Commerce, Georgia. According to the manufacturer, the problem was caused by a machinery malfunction during a very brief period in the production process. The company said it had added additional quality control measures and was prepared to provide refunds to affected customers. For its part, Walmart also confirmed that the affected products had been removed from store shelves and that customers who had purchased them could return to the store for a refund. At this point, we can clearly separate this investigation into 2 parts. The facts that have been confirmed. Products with incorrect weight labels did exist. The manufacturer acknowledged the error. Walmart removed the products and agreed to issue refunds. But there are also things that no one has proven. There's no evidence that Walmart and Kentucky Legend intentionally worked together to create incorrect labels. There is no evidence showing that every Walmart store across the United States experienced the same problem, and no independent audit has yet revealed exactly how many products were affected beyond the batches that have already been confirmed. That is the line separating a serious investigation from an unsupported accusation. We draw conclusions only where the evidence allows us to. But even if we accept every explanation offered by both Walmart and Kentucky Legend, one question still remains unanswered. How could a discrepancy of more than 3 pounds pass through the entire quality control system of a modern supply chain and reach the customer, only to be discovered by an ordinary shopper? Because perhaps the most unsettling part of this story was never just the underweight meat packages. It was what is slowly disappearing every time consumers walk into a grocery store. As we peel back the final layer of this investigation, we realize the story is no longer about the ham packages, the prime rib, or the $15 that was overcharged. It has reached a much bigger issue, one of the foundations that keeps the entire market economy and modern society from falling apart: consumer trust. Think about what modern shopping really is. The average American already spends every day dealing with work, family, and bills. When people walk into a grocery store, they cannot, and should not, be expected to carry a pocket scale, a certified measuring device, or a legal handbook to verify every product they buy. The smooth functioning of society depends on an unwritten social contract. The customer pays the money, and the seller promises to provide the weight and quality stated on the package. A product label is a written promise. When that contract is broken, when people realize that a factory-sealed package can still be missing more than half of its actual weight, that default trust immediately collapses. What disappears from Walmart's shelves isn't just money, it's the customer's sense of security. Consumers begin looking at every product with suspicion. They start asking themselves, does this carton of milk actually contain the amount it says? Does that bag of laundry detergent really have the listed weight? Is this tray of ground beef priced for more than what's actually inside? A society where shoppers have to bring a scale to the grocery store just to avoid being overcharged is a society witnessing a step backward in commercial civilization. This crisis of trust becomes even deeper when viewed alongside the direction today's retail industry is heading: the rise of automation, artificial intelligence, and self-checkout systems. Major corporations are investing billions of dollars in surveillance cameras, AI-powered behavior recognition, and self-checkout technology. What is the purpose of all these advanced systems? To make sure customers don't miss scanning a barcode, don't forget to pay for a single item, and to prevent theft by consumers as completely as possible. Ironically, while technology has been built to monitor customers with extraordinary precision and zero tolerance, the system designed to protect customers from errors made by the system itself and its suppliers appears far weaker and far more outdated. When an automated system is designed only to protect a corporation's profits while overlooking the most basic rights of the buyer, it creates an imbalance of power. Replacing traditional employees with machines has also unintentionally eliminated the human layer of quality control. The employees who could have spotted an unusual package with their own eyes and hands before it ever reached the shelf. Trust is an invisible asset that takes decades to build, but can be burned away by just a few 30-second experimental videos. The investigation into Walmart's underweight meat packages serves as a warning that extreme dependence on automated supply chains without reliable, transparent, and accountable quality control will always push the financial risk onto the people with the least power, the consumers themselves. This investigation began with a very ordinary suspicion from one customer and gradually opened the door to much bigger questions about how a modern retail system operates. The evidence gathered showed that some Kentucky Legend ham products were, in fact, labeled with incorrect weights when they appeared on Walmart shelves. The manufacturer later confirmed that a technical error had occurred during the packaging process, while Walmart removed the affected batch from its stores and committed to refunding customers. But one important point also needs to be emphasized. As of today, there is no evidence that this was part of an intentional, company-wide fraud scheme across Walmart. Independent inspections at other retail chains have also found that the vast majority of prepackaged products continue to meet the weight standards required under NIST Handbook 133. The most important takeaway from this case isn't finding one person or one company to blame. It's recognizing that even a brief error at a manufacturing facility can pass through an entire supply chain and become money paid by consumers at the checkout counter. That's a sign that the control system still has gaps that need to be closed. And perhaps the biggest question this investigation leaves behind is this: if the label is printed at the factory, but the money is collected at the retailer's checkout, then who bears the greatest responsibility for ensuring the product's weight before it reaches the customer? In the end, this isn't just a story about meat packages at Walmart. It reminds us that in an economy where every dollar matters, transparency on every product label isn't a privilege. It's a right every consumer deserves. And a marketplace is truly worthy of trust only when legitimate questions are heard instead of ignored.